What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Too Good for Theaters video. Today, we're going to be continuing our breakdown on the defensive signings of day one of free agency for the New England Patriots. So let's get right into it. So starting off here with the Patriots signing of Carlton Davis to a 3-year, $60 million contract with, I believe, 34.5 of that $60 million being in guaranteed money here. And this is my second favorite signing of the offseason thus far. Carlton Davis, 28 years old, still relatively in his prime and still being very productive here. Signs with your New England Patriots, and he really is just the perfect corner to match up opposite to Christian Gonzalez. You know, he has the body for it, 6'1", 206 pounds. He could be physical. He kind of plays with a little bit of that tenacity too, that little bit of a mean streak there. And it kind of shows in some of his penalty numbers. But it also shows with how aggressive he is and kind of being a ball hawk, very similar to what J.C. Jackson was here for the New England Patriots, opposite of Stephon Gilmore. And that's a pretty similar mold to kind of compare to both these corners that the New England Patriots have now. Gonzo, of course, to Gilmore. Hopefully Gonzo can maybe get himself in the Defensive Player of the Year award running like Gilmore did here. But also you can compare Carlton Davis to J.C. Jackson, kind of being that ball hawk on the other side of Christian Gonzalez. So that really is a very similar mold, and expect a lot of kind of man coverage schemes very similar to what Gilmore and J.C. Jackson played here in New England. Just replace them with Gonzo and Carlton Davis. But as I said before, this works out really well because Mike Vrabel defenses play a ton of man coverage. I believe I saw a stat where I believe Mike Vrabel defenses are like top 10 in man coverage percentage on their defensive play calling. And Carlton Davis actually ranks the 4th highest man coverage grades via Next Gen Stats. And I believe Gonzo's actually in the top 5 as well. So that's 2 lockdown quarters in man coverage. And it's going to be very difficult for teams to take advantage of the Patriots on these boundaries. And with the signing of Carlton Davis here, it kind of fills a little bit of a hole that the Patriots have been lacking. Obviously, you had undersized corners, guys like Marcus Jones and Jonathan Jones, playing on the outside. And to their credit, I both think they did a very good job for a number of years, even playing undersized. But now you get that big body corner opposite of Gonzo, who can really take advantage of these man coverage scenarios. And I really do think that this Patriots secondary is going to be a strength of this team. If Kyle Duggar, Jabril Peppers, if they can both stay healthy, along with Carlton Davis and Gonzo, I mean, this is going to be a very good secondary right there. That's a very good 4. And really, once you solve the inside, if you believe Marcus Jones is still your nickel corner, or maybe if you're looking into a different aspect, especially with Alex Austin as a good, reliable depth piece behind these two, it's certainly a very good signing here by the Patriots for not bad money. And cornerback is a highly sought-after position in this league now, so you are going to have to cough up money when you're talking about these corners. And a lot of teams might even think that Carlton Davis is a CB1 in this league, and to have him as your CB2, maybe not the greatest allocation of money, but that is the luxury of having the amount of cap space that the Patriots did in this last offseason, where they can overpay in positions, and really it probably won't come back to haunt them this season, or hopefully down the line either. But I just think that this is a very good signing. It's not a extremely long-term deal here for Carlton Davis, so he's going to be playing here till he's in his early 30s. But I just think that this is an experienced corner who's really going to bring more dimensions to your defense, and someone who's going to fit your scheme absolutely perfectly. And I'm sure that he, of course, has familiarity with Terrell Williams, your new defensive coordinator here. Obviously, they did not work together with Terrell Williams being the defensive line coach in Detroit. But, I mean, you're talking about the culture builders on this team, and Terrell Williams, I'm sure, probably spoke very highly of Carlton Davis, and that's why the Patriots kind of sought after him as a day one free agent target. Taking a look at Davis's grades these past few seasons, last year he played a grand total of 15 games where he actually fractured his jaw later on in the season and was unable to contribute into Detroit's playoff push. But he had a defensive grade of 74.5 last year, a run defense grade of 77.7, and for a corner, Carlton Davis does a really nice job in the run support game. He's not afraid to take on some of these receiving blocks and go ahead and make some tackles in the backfield. So that's certainly going to help the Patriots, especially with how much they struggled last season in the running game. So hopefully that is a area that will translate well here to this Vrabel defense with Carlton Davis playing on the outside. He actually had a tackling grade of 64.4, a rushing grade of 60, and a coverage grade of 72.1. Of course, all these grades are being provided by Pro Football Focus, PFF. And on the year, he came up with a grand total of 49 tackles for around a missed tackle rate of 12%. Pretty solid tackler on the edge there for a cornerback. He was targeted 72 times in the passing game and allowed 43 receptions for around a reception rate of 60%. He allowed 583 yards in total. He allowed 3 touchdowns. He had 6 pass breakups, 2 interceptions. He was penalized 8 times and he forced a fumble. And just taking a look at where he really snapped or took his snap counts out, he really is just a wide corner at this rate. He had 588 snaps out wide on the boundaries. Sometimes he can move into the slot, taking 51 slot snaps, and he even played a little bit of box there for Detroit this past season with taking 52 snaps there. But this is a guy who you're going to see on the outside for the most part. They might rush him on some blitzes from the secondary occasionally, but this really is just a guy who's going to line up and play you man for man, whether it's off coverage, tight coverage, press coverage. Doesn't really matter. He's just going to be on the boundaries. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots have Gonzo and him following the 1 and 2 wide receivers this year, or if they go kind of sides how Seattle used to with that Legion of Boom defense. So that might be something to really monitor here with the New England Patriots and how they play that area with both Gonzo and Carlton Davis. But taking a look at his last year in Tampa, the 2023 campaign, he had an overall defensive grade of 63.1, a run defense grade of 66.7, a tackling grade of 50.9, a rushing grade of 55.8, and a coverage grade of 63.3. He had 54 tackles on the year for around a missed tackle rate of 13%. And it's a common theme. You can really see his missed tackling grades of being around that 12-13 percentile there. So pretty sure tackler from the cornerback position, as I said before. He was targeted 90 times in the passing attack and allowed 57 receptions for around a reception rate of 63%. He allowed 828 yards, 5 touchdowns allowed. He had 8 pass breakups and 2 interceptions with 6 penalties. And Carlton Davis is known for kind of taking some gambles here. So there are times where he's going to get beat. Very similar to what J.C. Jackson was early on in his career in New England here. But I think that's a very good comp here for Carlton Davis. If not, Carlton Davis might be even better than what J.C. Jackson was here in New England. And these are all stats where he was CB1. So now put him up against second wide receiver instead of number ones. And I can very much see these stats improving, especially when you have a guy like Gonzo playing on the other side. Mostly going to take the reps against the opposing number one. So it's going to be interesting here to see if his production goes up just based off that. But also taking a look at his snaps by alignment. Very similar by how he played in Detroit. Really just a wide corner. He took 749 wide snaps there in Tampa. Played only 47 slot snaps and played 48 box snaps. So really a guy, like I said before, who's going to be on the outside and might take the occasional slot or box snaps here. But this is a guy who's going to be able to help out this Patriots defense in a number of ways, but especially in the man coverage area, kind of solving a little bit of that need of that outside corner opposite of Gonzo. So I'm very excited to see what Carlton Davis brings here in New England. The Patriots also signed former Raiders linebacker Robert Spillane on a 3-year, $37.5 million contract with around 20.6 of that $37.5 million being in guaranteed money here. And this is another guy with multitude of ties back to this Patriots coaching staff. I believe he was actually signed as an undrafted free agent by Mike Vrabel during his time in Tennessee. He ultimately ended up getting cut, but I'm sure there were some identifiable traits there that Vrabel obviously liked, as well as I believe he actually played under Josh McDaniels with the Las Vegas Raiders in the 2023 campaign. And I'm not sure how much Josh McDaniels was working with the defense during his campaign there, but he's obviously someone that he thought very highly of, naming Spillane as a captain of the Raiders defense. So I'm sure that Mike Vrabel, as well as Josh McDaniels, certainly thought highly of the culture value that Robert Spillane might bring here to New England. And this is a guy who I see very similar to Jawan Bentley, if not more athletic than Jawan Bentley. He's going to be that middle of the field linebacker who really just finds ways to be around the ball, whether it's playing downhill or sideline to sideline. This is someone who just always finds ways to be involved in a play. And from a traditional linebacker role, I mean, he's really that guy who can put in the middle of the field and just have him kind of let loose, whether you're blitzing him, whether you're having him spy, or whether you're kind of gapping him in terms of a linebacker playing downhill in the run game. This is someone who's going to be able to get the job done. And according to PFF, he is actually a top 10 run defender from the linebacking spot in this league this past season. And he's had some very good run defense grade according to PFF these past couple seasons here. But it does bring a little bit of questions into this Patriots linebacking room for guys like Jawan Bentley, Christian Ellis, as well as Jelani Tavai. And me personally, I think that Jelani Tavai might actually be on the chopping block here. I understand that Robert Spillane probably mostly similar or mirrors Jawan Bentley here, but I think that Jawan Bentley still has a very good place on this team, kind of being that traditional linebacker who you can actually pair with Robert Spillane on the field for early down scenarios and have them really much contribute in the run defense game. But after the comments that Jelani Tavai made past in the last season, and especially with what Mike Vrabel said in terms of regarding comments of trying to get rid of entitlement in this franchise, that might be an indication that Jelani Tavai is actually going to be on the chopping block here. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with this Patriots linebacking core. And hopefully Robert Spillane can bring all that production that he had in Las Vegas here to the Patriots. So taking a look into Spillane's 2024 campaign with the Las Vegas Raiders, he had an overall defensive grade of 68.4, an elite run defense grade of 87.3, a tackling grade of 83.4, a rushing grade of 67.4, and a coverage grade of 48.8. His stats for the year, he came up with a total of 110 tackles for around a missed tackle rate of 6%, a very sure tackler. He had 13 pressures on the year, 10 hurries, a QB hit, and came up with 2 sacks. He was targeted 65 times in the passing attack and allowed 55 receptions for around a reception rate of 85%. You'd love to see that go down here in New England. And he allowed 572 total yards when targeted in the passing game. He allowed 4 passing touchdowns as well. However, he did have 4 pass breakups and came up with a total of 2 interceptions there and was only penalized once. So coverage isn't necessarily his best trait, but he is prone to make some plays as well as give up some plays. So he really is a hit or miss type of coverage linebacker, but mostly you're going to see he is most effective in terms of run support. And those numbers reflect his 2023 campaign as well. Under Josh McDaniels, he had an overall defensive grade of 77.1, a run defense grade of 89, a tackling grade of 69.1, a rush grade of 87.7, and a coverage grade of 59. And on the season, he came up with 96 total tackles for around a missed tackle rate of 11%. He had 19 pressures, 13 hurries, 2 QB hits, came up with 4 sacks. He was targeted 67 times in the passing attack and allowed 52 receptions for around a reception rate of 78%. He allowed 557 total yards when targeted. He allowed 2 touchdowns. He had 2 pass breakups. And he actually had 3 interceptions and was only penalized twice. So between Josh McDaniels and Antonio Pierce as the head coaches of the Las Vegas Raiders, Spillane was still one of the better run defense linebackers and actually had a much better pass rush campaign compared to his most recent season of strictly only under Antonio Pierce with the Las Vegas Raiders here. But very similar in terms of snaps by alignment each season. They kind of both used him as the same traditional linebacker role. He took the majority of his snaps from the box. With this most recent campaign, he took 983 box snaps compared to only 42 slot snaps and 56 defensive line snaps. And he was motioned out wide 10 times compared to his 2023 campaign. Very similar under Josh McDaniels. He had 989 total box snaps compared to only 63 defensive line snaps and 40 slot snaps. So, as I said before, he really is that traditional middle of the field linebacker who you just unplug, let him go to the ball. You might see on coverage every now and again, but he's certainly going to be at his best when he's helping in the run support or if he's attacking the quarterback on some of these blitzes. And Mike Vrabel doesn't tend to blitz a ton, but he says when he does blitz, he wants his blitzes to be purposeful. So maybe Spillane will be one of the benefactors of being that extra blitzer. And maybe you might see those pass production numbers tick up a little bit here while he has his time in New England. The last move of the day made by the New England Patriots on the defensive side of the ball was signing, oh God, I'm certainly going to butcher this name. I believe it is Spillane Tonga, a 28-year-old from the Arizona Cardinals, to a 1-year, $2.7 million contract. He is 6'4", and weighs around 340 pounds, 338 pounds to be precise. But this is the type of guy that immediately brings me back to Danny Shelton and some of those bigger body guys that Bill Belichick loved to have in the middle of this defense. However, under Mike Vrabel's new scheme, I'm kind of interested to see where this kind of fills out. Instead of having that old two-gapping system that Bill Belichick and Gerard Mayo kind of implemented these past couple seasons here in New England, Mike Vrabel kind of likes more of the one gap, just try and get as much penetration on the quarterback as possible, and certainly working more downfield from a lineman stance instead of just trying to fill up more offensive bodies. So maybe they're trying to counteract their one gap scheme a little bit and have that guy who can have some bodies on early downs. But frankly, I don't see that this is a scheme fit wise move for the Patriots. And I think that this is more so going to be a little bit of a roster battle here between Tonga as well as Jeremiah Farms to see who can really carve out that true role here. I wouldn't say that this is a roster lock by any means. So this will certainly be a camp battle to kind of look out for in the early days of training camp and minicamp. So moving over to Tonga's stats here, in 2024 with the Arizona Cardinals, he played 13 games. He had an overall defensive grade of 60, a run defense grade of 57.1, a tackling grade of 45.5, a pass rush grade of 61.4, and a coverage grade of 60. Came up with a total of 12 tackles on the season for around a missed tackle percentage of 12%. He had 6 pressures and 6 hurries. Not really someone who's going to get to the quarterback. In fact, throughout his entire 4-year NFL career thus far, he only has registered 1 career sack. And taking a look at his 2023 campaign, where he also played 13 games with the Minnesota Vikings, his grades were an overall defensive grade of 67.7, a run defense grade of 58.1, a tackling grade of 74.3, a pass rush grade of 70.4, and a coverage grade of 71.6. He had 12 tackles as well during the 2023 campaign. He did not miss a tackle. He had 9 pressures, 7 hurries, and came up with 2 QB hits. But it's kind of interesting how both those teams kind of used him differently. The Cardinals kind of used him as more so a traditional defensive tackle / nose tackle, whereas the Vikings kind of used him more so as a versatile piece, more so at defensive tackle, but they actually used him at the defensive end spot as well. So I see the Patriots more so kind of using that Cardinal plan of using him strictly more so as a nose tackle and defensive tackle compared to defensive ends, because I do think that the Patriots are just more filled out along the defensive line, especially at the edge position and the end position, than the defensive tackle. And really his biggest role is going to be that run support player up the middle, that big body guy who can draw multiple bodies along the offensive line for the Patriots here. Very similar to guys like Danny Shelton. And as I said before, he's no roster lock by any means, but this certainly could be an area where he can help improve this defensive line by just being an early down defensive lineman who could plug up some running lanes for hopefully and kind of use that little bit of that two-gap mantra that Belichick had, just translate that more so over to Vrabel's defense here. So interesting signing here by the Patriots. Even though this player isn't the ideal candidate for this scheme, you're going to have to watch out to see if he makes his roster and whether or not he's going to be able to be productive in that area, or else he might be cut loose and simply just be a training camp body, as I stated before. All right, everyone, that's going to wrap up this video here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on the Patriots potentially signing 2 defensive starters, plus some depth at the defensive tackle position. And don't worry, I'm going to have some more videos coming out in the next couple days breaking down the moves they made on the offensive side of the ball. So look out for that. And once again, thank you so much for watching.